You can walk into a room feeling fine and leave feeling strangely heavy. Nothing dramatic happened, but somehow your body acts like it did. You tell yourself you're just tired. But the exhaustion feels too specific, like your mind has been carrying people it never agreed to hold. Some people absorb information. You absorb atmosphere, tone, pauses, tension, disappointment, fake smiles, and the emotion hiding underneath ordinary words. That's why a normal day can feel weirdly expensive. Not because life was loud, but because you were registering everything life whispered. You notice the shift in someone's voice before anyone else does. You feel the stress in a room before a single problem is spoken out loud. And because you notice it, your system starts working on it, quietly, constantly, and usually without your permission. Other people leave conversations and move on. You leave conversations still carrying the facial expressions, the energy, and the parts nobody said. Hours later, your body is still processing a moment everyone else forgot. That's part of what makes this kind of exhaustion so hard to explain. It doesn't always look like stress from the outside. Sometimes it looks like being nice, listening well, staying composed, and seeming unusually calm. But inside, your mind is crowded. It is sorting signals, replaying interactions, and trying to make emotional sense of everything it picked up. This is the hidden psychology of people who absorb other people's energy. They are rarely weak, dramatic, or too sensitive in the shallow way people assume. More often, they are highly aware people living with a nervous system that doesn't stop at the surface. It keeps reading long after the moment is over. That is why you can feel drained by someone who never technically did anything wrong. Their mood entered your body before your mind had time to name it. You may sit across from a friend at lunch and feel fine. Then you go home and realize your chest is tight, your jaw is tense, and your thoughts feel crowded. The conversation seemed ordinary, but beneath the words, you were tracking their frustration, their loneliness, their impatience, and your own effort to stay steady. People like this often spend the day appearing functional. Then the crash comes later, when the stimulation finally has somewhere to land. That delayed exhaustion confuses them. They wonder why a short errand, a quick call, or one coffee meeting wiped out the whole evening. It's because the depletion was never just social. It was sensory, emotional, cognitive, and relational all at once. You weren't only talking. You were reading expressions, adjusting your tone, noticing discomfort, managing your own reactions, and subconsciously making room for theirs. That kind of awareness can look effortless, but internally, it is a full-time background job with no off switch. This is why silence doesn't always feel peaceful right away. Sometimes silence is where all the unprocessed noise finally becomes audible. The house gets quiet, and suddenly your brain starts replaying everything. The weird pause, the change in eye contact, the sentence you wish you had phrased differently. You're not being difficult. Your mind is trying to metabolize what everyone else left unexamined. For highly aware people, overstimulation is not always about crowds or chaos. It can come from subtleties that other people barely register. A strained hello can linger for hours. A disappointed look can follow you into bedtime like unfinished music. This happens because some nervous systems are built to detect more. They don't just respond to obvious stress. They respond to emotional texture. You pick up contradiction fast. When someone says they're fine but their energy says otherwise, your body often believes the energy first. That inner conflict costs something. It creates a kind of mental friction that builds quietly throughout the day. Part of you is trying to stay present. Another part is analyzing the emotional gap between what people say and what they actually feel. That split attention is exhausting. It means you are rarely just having an experience, you are also monitoring it. And monitoring is work. Even when you look relaxed, your brain may still be scanning for shifts, risks, needs, and unspoken meaning. This is one reason deeply observant people get tired in environments others call normal. Their attention is not casual, even when they wish it were. They often walk through the world with the volume turned up, not by choice, but by wiring. A busy store is not just bright lights and sound. It is impatient faces, rushed movement, tension in voices, and too many emotional signals at once. A family dinner is not just dinner. It is old patterns, careful wording, silent alliances, and sensing who is irritated before the first bite is finished. A workplace meeting is not just information. It is status, pressure, suppressed frustration, fake enthusiasm, and trying to read what the room really wants. So when you come home feeling depleted, it makes sense. Your body was carrying far more data than the setting appeared to contain. That is the part many people miss. The fatigue is real, even when the day looks small. Sometimes you absorb energy because you learned early to pay close attention. Reading the room may have once helped you feel safe, accepted, or prepared. You became good at sensing shifts before they became problems. Over time, that skill stopped feeling like a skill and started feeling like personality. Now you call yourself observant, thoughtful, or someone who just notices things. But sometimes what you call awareness is actually constant anticipatory labor. You are always slightly ahead of the moment. You are bracing, adjusting, interpreting, and preparing before life is fully unfolded. That makes rest harder than it looks, because the body that is trained to read everything rarely trusts stillness immediately. Even alone, it may keep scanning, not for danger exactly, but for disturbance, tension, or the next emotional ripple. This is why some people feel tired before the day has even truly started. They wake up already mentally leaning into the world. Before breakfast, they are thinking about the mood of the office, the energy of a text, the tone of a conversation waiting later. Their body is already budgeting for impact. And when you live that way long enough, exhaustion becomes strangely invisible. You stop asking why you're drained and start calling it normal. But normal does not mean light. It just means familiar. There's also a quiet loneliness in this pattern. You feel a lot, but much of what tires you never fully becomes visible to other people. They see you smiling through dinner. They do not see the recovery your system will need after pretending the tension didn't affect you. They see you listening carefully. They do not see how your mind keeps holding what they shared long after the conversation ends. They see you leaving early or going quiet. They do not see that your internal world is already over capacity. So you may start questioning yourself. Am I overreacting, or just weak, or somehow less able to handle normal life? Usually, neither is true. You are often dealing with more input than people around you realize exists. That is why certain relationships can tire you even when there is love there. Love does not cancel out emotional intensity. Some people speak in a way that requires you to do too much translating. Their mood is unpredictable, their words are unclear, and your body never fully unclenches around them. You may leave those interactions feeling guilty for being tired, but your exhaustion is information, not a character flaw. Sometimes your body is telling you that closeness became labor. That connection required constant emotional interpretation instead of simple presence. And that distinction matters, because absorbing people's energy is not always about compassion alone. Sometimes it is about carrying what the room refuses to carry. You become the one who notices the awkwardness, the sadness, the resentment, the emotional mess floating between people. And because you notice it, you start containing it. Not out loud, of course. Usually in the invisible ways that make you look composed while feeling internally crowded. You soften your tone to keep things calm. You choose your words carefully, leave space for others, and swallow your own reaction to avoid making the moment heavier. That may help the room, but it can quietly overload your nervous system. Because every time you suppress your own response to hold everyone else's, your body pays interest later. It may come as fatigue, irritability, numbness, or a weird need to disappear. This is why recovery can feel slow. You're not only recovering from events, but from all the emotional management inside them. Sometimes the crash happens in the car. Sometimes it waits until the shower, the dim kitchen, or the moment your front door finally closes. Then the exhale comes. Not dramatic, just deep enough to reveal how much tension you are carrying without noticing. That private collapse is familiar to many sensitive people. They function in public, then unravel in the only place that feels unwatched. It can look small from the outside, sitting in the dark, staring at the floor, needing silence so badly it almost feels physical. But that silence is not emptiness. It is medicine for a system that has been open too long. And sleep does not always fix it. Because what tires you is not only physical output, it is unresolved mental and emotional activation. You can sleep 8 hours and still wake up heavy. Your body rested, but your mind never fully unclenched. Maybe you dreamed in fragments. Maybe you kept processing old conversations while trying to rest. That's another hidden part of absorbing energy. The experience does not end when the moment ends. It follows you into evening and sometimes into the next day. Emotional residue has a longer half-life in deeply aware people. A blunt comment can echo for hours. A room full of low-grade tension can leave a film over your whole nervous system. That does not mean you are fragile. It means your inner world has high fidelity. You don't just hear what happened. You register how it felt, how it shifted the room, and what it might mean underneath. There is beauty in that, but there is cost, too. Depth without boundaries easily turns into chronic overload. And this is where many people get confused. They think their exhaustion means they should become colder, less caring, less open. But numbness is not the answer. The goal is not to stop feeling. It is to stop carrying everything as if it belongs inside you. That is a subtle but life-changing difference. Feeling something is human, but storing all of it is a burden. Not every mood you sense is yours to solve. Not every tension you detect needs a place inside your body. Sometimes awareness is enough. You do not need to turn every emotional signal into internal responsibility. This is especially hard for people who were praised for being the steady one, the mature one, the thoughtful one, the one who understands. That identity can become a trap. You start believing your value lives in how much emotional weight you can carry without complaining. But quiet strength is still strain when it never gets put down. Being the safe place for others should not mean becoming unsafe for yourself. There's also a hidden grief here. People who absorb energy often spend years adapting to environments that were simply too much for them. They called themselves lazy when they were overloaded. They called themselves antisocial when they were under-recovered. They called themselves complicated when they were actually saturated. And that misnaming adds another layer of exhaustion. Because now you are not only tired, you are tired and blaming yourself for it. What changes things is not pretending you are unaffected. It is recognizing that your body has been honest all along. The drained feeling after certain people is real. The mental noise at night is real, and the need for space is real too. Your system is not broken because it takes longer to clear what others barely notice. It may simply be processing more, at a deeper level, for a longer time. That awareness deserves honesty. Not glorification, not shame, just honesty. Yes, your depth can make you thoughtful, intuitive, and emotionally precise. It can also make ordinary life feel heavier than it looks. Both things can be true at once. You can be perceptive and tired, loving and overloaded, strong and in need of quieter rooms. And maybe that is the most important shift. Not asking why am I like this with frustration, but seeing the real pattern underneath. You were never tired for no reason. You were tired because your mind and body were doing more than anyone could see. You were feeling the weather inside other people while trying to keep your own sky from collapsing. That is a lot for one nervous system to hold. So if you have always wondered why certain rooms stay in your body, why some people leave a residue, and why peace takes time, there is your answer. You absorb more than the moment seems to contain. And once you see that clearly, your exhaustion stops looking like weakness. It starts looking like unspoken labor finally being named.